Hey, my name is Phaedread. Thanks for coming to check out this video. Today, I'm going to start something new with you guys. We're going to jump into a game that's just coming out called Rend. It's currently in alpha, or it might be an early release by the time you're watching this. So I figured I'd help out the community and some of our newer players a little bit by putting out some basic how-to guides for you. If you haven't seen some of my previous guides, I'm a pretty straightforward guy, and I like to get right down to it, so let's jump in. Today, we're going to go ahead and cover the basics on how to start up in this crazy open world PvP game. The basic idea of the game is there's 3 factions fighting it out over a roughly 1 to 3 month period, or as they call them, sagas. A saga is what the match is called for this actual life cycle. The saga ends after one team fills up their entire spirit tree completely to the top, but we'll go over a little bit more of that later. I don't want to touch too much on endgame now. For now, let's just go ahead and jump into the basics. When you create your character, you'll be able to select one of 3 faction types: Revenant, Conclave, and Order. Now, the only real differences here are going to be some of the basic resources that spawn in the faction locations, along with the colors. So Revenant is purple, Conclave is green, and Order is orange. Outside of that, they don't really make too much of a difference which one you pick. It's just going to be user preference, so feel free to pick whichever one you like the most. Jump into the gameplay, you'll notice there's a basic tutorial that will walk you through some of the normal MMO controls, such as W, A, S, and D. I'd recommend at least keeping them up until you're comfortable with the game, but I'm going to go ahead and close them for now. You'll notice you have 6 bars down here on the bottom left. These bars represent your spirit, weight, food, water, health, and stamina. As this is a survival game, you're going to have to learn how to balance all 6 of these. We'll talk a little bit more about spirit in another video. That is the thing that actually helps you win the game and fill up that tree, but for right now, we'll go ahead and stay out of that. The first thing you're going to need to do is start crafting your tools. There are 4 different tools types in Rend: a hatchet, a mallet, a pick, and a sickle. You're going to need varying materials in order to be able to craft each one of these. You'll notice that each item requires a prerequisite crafted item before it unlocks. As you can see, down here in the required skill text at the bottom in red, will actually tell you exactly what you need to craft in order to unlock whenever you're going to be able to craft at that next progression level. It's basically another tutorial to walk you through the game's progression features. The crafting menu you see here also has a lot of useful items such as backpacks and torches. We're not going to go too deep into these on the first video, however I'd highly recommend going over these items. Just hover over them to see what they do when you actually get a minute, as they're going to be pretty useful at some point in the game. Next, let's go ahead and start gathering. You're going to notice, unlike traditional MMOs, you can't just go up and swing at a tree to start gathering your resources. This throws off a couple of new players, so be pretty careful with this. What you're actually going to want to do is put the reticle over the item you're trying to gather. As you can see, the item actually turns into, or the reticle rather, actually turns into a little plus sign. This means that you're good to go and actually can start harvesting the nodes. If you're not harvesting anything, go ahead and double check that, make sure the reticle is directly over whatever you're trying to gather, maybe move a little bit closer to if you're having some issues. To craft your first tool, you're going to have to actually start gathering some sticks and fiber. You get the sticks by punching the trees you see around the starting zone here. You can punch the big ones or the little ones, it's not going to make a difference. The fiber, you actually have to go and start punching some bushes. Now keep in mind, you won't be able to gather fiber from the watermelon or from the orange flowers that are on the ground. Once you get a sickle, you'll be able to do that a little bit later, but as of right now, since we're just using our fists, try and focus on the bigger bushes. You're going to need 4 raw fiber to be able to make your first twine, which is what we need for that hatchet. Once you've gone ahead and got enough materials, go ahead and hit the C button to open your crafting menu. Here you can double click your ball of twine to craft 1, or you can right click it to be able to craft more than 1. This actually has a craft all button, or you can select as many as you need. Once you've done this, go ahead and double click on the hatchet to make one of these. After the hatchet's been crafted, you'll notice that you've now unlocked the mallet, a bow, and a few pieces of clothing. Let's focus on the next tool, which is your mallet. Tools are automatically placed in your paper doll upon being crafted. Additionally, you can actually hold the Q button in order to actually cycle between any of your tools you see. As you can see here, you have the bottom left, top right, and bottom right, or you can actually go directly in the bottom middle and that will disarm. You can also hit the X button when any of your tools or weapons are out, and that automatically disarms them as well. In order to craft the mallet, we're going to need something called sap and some logs. If you go ahead and equip your axe, left click any of the trees, you'll notice that you start gathering twigs and sap. However, if you right click some of the larger trees, you'll actually start gathering some logs, as you can see here. Each tool in Rend has both a left click and a right click function, which will allow you to gather different types of resources depending on the tools and the resource node. Alright, once we have the sap and the logs ready to go, let's go ahead and open up your crafting menu again by hitting C. We'll need to craft one more twine if you haven't already in order to make the mallet. Additionally, if you have the resources, let's go ahead and make your bow now as well. You're going to need one here in the future. As you can see, the pick's going to be our next tool as it was unlocked by our current crafts. In order to craft it, we're going to need to gather some flint. To get flint, you're going to have to go ahead and equip your mallet by again holding Q and selecting the proper tool. Mallets will gather stone and salt if you left click, or flint by right clicking. After you've picked up some flint, let's go ahead and get that last, well, not last tool, but let's go ahead and get your pick and get ready to get the last tool here. Okay, so in order to go ahead and craft the sickle, what we're going to need to do is actually unlock it by crafting a rough weave shirt. Again, like we talked about before, if you have a lock and you need to figure out what's on it, you hover over the locked item, it will say what you actually need to do to be able to unlock it. So let's go ahead and gather some more fiber in order to do that. You're going to need 20 raw fiber and at least 3 fiber twine to craft the rough weave shirt. Once that's finished, however, you'll be able to unlock the sickle. This one isn't going to require you to get any more fancy materials, so go ahead and take a few minutes and gather a few more of the basics right now. The sickle can again go ahead and harvest with both left and right click. Left clicking on either a fruit or flower bush will return either a flower or the fruit depending on the actual bush type. You can also left click on some of the bushes that don't have any fruits or flowers and they'll return different types of vines, but we'll cover that a little bit later, probably in another video. You're not going to need to use that too much right now. If you actually right click on any of them, including some of the fruit and flower bushes, it's going to return a good amount of fiber. So this is a good way to actually start stocking up on this as you will need it for later on. I'd recommend using this to get all of your basic clothing while we're at it as well. Now that we're done with all the basic tools, let's go ahead and move on to the arrows. So you're going to need to go ahead and farm up sticks in order to craft these. It's 3 sticks for 3 arrows. I'd also recommend you craft up a campfire now as well. You're going to need that when we actually start hunting. This is what actually helps you cook food. I'll actually show you how to do that here in just a moment, but I'd recommend gathering up a good amount of sticks, maybe get at least 50 plus arrows to start out. You're going to need them for a good amount of hunting, and this is going to really help you get to that next game. You basically gone ahead and got everything you're going to need to get started in the game now, so let's cover the last few of the basics. First, food. You're welcome to go ahead and eat as many of those berries and melons that we've been gathering as you want. You can eat them, they'll sustain you for a little bit, especially the melons there, but really, you're not going to get very far into the game if you don't actually start upgrading. The food and the berries really aren't, or the berries and the melons aren't very good for anything like this, and you're not going to live off them very long. What we actually need to do is start hunting. Now, we've already gone ahead and crafted the bow, but the game tries to teach you early that the crafting mechanics can actually go pretty poorly for you. You can actually crit up or crit down. What I mean is that you actually have a chance to make the item better, or you can actually fail the craft altogether. So you can actually upgrade the item, so let's say from a white to a green or a green to a blue, or you can fail and lose the resources that you spent actually crafting the item. It tries to teach you that here. So what we're going to need to do first is actually throw away the old bow. You can drag that off to the side of your screen and just put it on the ground. It does put it in a barrel, but go ahead and just leave the barrel. Since the game really wants to teach you this mechanic, it's actually going to make you craft one more really bad bow. So let's craft 2 now, that way we actually get one good one. Since we've already done the first one, let's go ahead and craft the other ones now. Go ahead and craft those up, and we'll go ahead and drop the next crafting one as well. Alright, now that we have some good bow, or a good bow, and some arrows, you're going to want to start looking around for something to hunt. I'd recommend starting small. You can start with the pigs without tusks, as they're the actual weakest game or creatures in the game currently. They don't give a whole lot of meat, but they're not going to do, you're not going to actually need very much right now. You'll want to go ahead and note that this game does have crit spots. So while hunting these pigs, if you hit them in the head, you'll get a crit. Now crits are a little bit messed up if you're still in alpha or early access, so go ahead and excuse those for now, but normally if you crit something it will do more damage. The damage varies depending on where you actually hit them. Remember, the tools also have left and right click. Left click harvests meat, right click harvests leather. I'd recommend hunting a few of these pigs, get as much meat as you possibly can. Remember that campfire we crafted up earlier? Let's go ahead and place it down now. So it should have defaulted to your hotbar. Just go ahead and press any of the keys that it's on. It's probably on 1 or 2 and place it here. Doesn't really matter, as long as you're not too close to a foundation, you should be able to place it down. Here you're going to want to go ahead and move the wood over into the fuel. You can open up the campfire by hitting F, and then hit the on or off button to be able to turn it on, and to put the meat over here on the right side. Give it a little bit of time and it'll actually go ahead and cook up for you. There isn't any sort of progression bar, it's not going to show you how fast it's cooking. However, I do want to mention that if you hover over a food once it is cooked, it will actually show you what kind of buff it gives. All meats in the game, doesn't matter what it is, gives a different kind of buff. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of really good ones out there, things like Yixin meat that you're going to need when you go into the cold. Keep that in mind when you're actually picking the type of food that you're going to get. I would also recommend taking a little bit of time and actually going and hunt some of these things called, I think they're called rabbits if I'm not mistaken. It does give you a speed buff, which in my opinion is probably one of the best foods out there. So go ahead and start collecting some meat, get it cooked up, and then we'll jump to the next thing. Alright, the last thing that you're going to need to know to stay alive in Rend is that water is pretty essential. You'll notice, especially if you don't have any perks to keep it up, your water drops pretty quick. And until you're able to pick up some of the late game water skins, you're going to need to walk up and actually go to a body of water. These are scattered throughout the entire map all over the place. All you need to do is actually go ahead and go up to one of them and hit the letter F. That will actually use and drink water. There's a few little surprises I'm going to let you guys figure out on your own with those, but any of the places around the map should be okay for the most part. The best place to find early water is actually going to go to the lake that's just to the south of your main faction base. To get there, if you look at the big tree in the distance, that's actually what people consider due north. So think of it like the North Pole. Anywhere around the map that you go, it's going to be north, just like if you anywhere around the world that you went, it's going to be north, right? So that's the best way to think of it. Start heading north, you should run into a lake, just walk up to it and hit F. That's the best way to do it there, and it should be good to go. Okay, with all of that covered, there's really only one more thing I'd like to talk about, and that's going to be the death in Rend. When you die in Rend, all of your loot will stay actually on your body. That means everything that you've had on you, everything you've looted, stays on your body. You can deposit a lot of that in your actual faction base, wherever else you're going to store it, personal bases, guild bases, etc. to kind of avoid that. But the exception to that is going to be your tools. Your tools will always stay on you, and I would highly recommend keeping them in your paper doll. If they're in your inventory, they may fall, so if you're upgrading, be careful, make sure you're actually putting them where they need to go. Your tools will definitely your tools will definitely stay with you regardless of when and or where you die. There's really only one exception to this kind of death rule, and that's when there's something called the Reckoning. During the event, we'll kind of get into it a little bit later, but basically the event, if you die inside of your city, this might actually apply at any time, but if you die inside your city, all of your stuff actually stays on you. The Reckoning we'll get into a little bit later. It's kind of an end game mechanic, and we'll really talk about it in depth, probably in a video just by itself. So more to come around that. Now, on the actual death part, your teammates and or your enemies can actually free loot your body when you die. So you have to be really careful, as you do, I mean, it really depends on where you die, right? Be careful, because in early game, some of the newer players won't necessarily understand this mechanic, so they really might actually start trying to loot you just to get loot. It's a super heavy, really big game for teams. So think team when we're actually thinking on this whole aspect. This is one faction, one team. You don't want to mess over your team. You don't want to screw them over. So be really careful. Don't loot other teams or other teammates. Don't let them loot you. Kind of talk it out. If there's an issue, talk it out in chat. Usually everyone's pretty cool about it. We haven't had an issue so far. However, again, noobs will likely loot you, and who knows, there may even be some griefers on the server that are doing it on purpose. We've seen one or two of those as well. On that note, if you do see an allied party, talk with them. Don't just go and pick it up. If they're not online, if you can confirm they're not online, or if they ask you to loot it, go ahead and pick it up. But otherwise, just leave it there. It's not worth griefing your own team, as it's just going to set you all back. If you do end up dying, now you'll be given the option to respawn at your main base, or your personal base, your guild base, or really any other faction controlled points around the map. There are little outposts that can be controlled by the faction, and you can actually spawn them, or spawn there rather. Typically you'll just want to pick whatever's closest to your body. There are a few caveats to this, but again, something probably not worth really talking about right this second. All you're going to need to do is actually run back up to your body, and you can hit take all, and then you've got it all back. So just be careful when you guys are actually doing it. Alright, that pretty much covers the basics for Rend. You should be pretty well off and have a pretty good start now. Or at least you shouldn't die from hunger anymore, I hope. I hope this guide was pretty helpful for you too. I did make it a little bit different than I normally do, so if you're used to watching my art guides, you're probably going to notice a little bit different here. I usually do it on a private server, so it's a little bit different. I'm doing it live for you guys. Started a couple of new characters, no god mode, no spawning things in. So let me know what you guys think of the first one here. I'll be putting out a couple more of these basic guides like this, along with some helpful tips, tricks, and probably a little bit of how-tos over the next little while, just to give it a shot. I really like the game. It's a lot of fun so far. and I'm glad I got to test it out a little bit early for you guys and get you some of this insider info. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and if so, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, or check out some of the videos you're going to see on the screen now. Also, I'm going to be streaming Rend live at twitch.com/Phaedread. Feel free to go ahead and drop by, ask me some questions, enter some of the giveaways, and just have a great time. I hope you guys are enjoying the game. See you next time, and thanks for watching.